My name is Aria Monroe. I'm 20 years old, and I live in Des Moines, Iowa. And according to my mother, I'm the odd shadow in a shining family. I've never dropped out of school, never partied too hard, and never gotten anyone sent to the police station in the middle of the night. But none of that matters when you're the older sister of Savannah. Savannah, with hair like golden corn, a smile just sweet enough to be called innocent, and eyes that tear up on cue. She's the reason my family is known as the perfect church model. The princess of the extended clan, the one who got to give the graduation speech even though I was valedictorian. I remember the day I received the letter from the Global Leadership Program, a rare opportunity for political science students. I held that envelope like it contained my entire future. But instead of excitement, my mom raised an eyebrow when she saw the international stamp. Dreaming too big again, Aria? Why not settle here, find an office job and start a family like Savannah's doing? I swallowed my response, just like I always had. In this house, disagreeing means being ungrateful. Every dinner felt like a staged production. My father, Marcus, sat at the head of the table, reading his Bible, while my mother recited Savannah's weekly accomplishments. Savannah's been asked to lead the youth group next month, Mom beamed. Pastor's considering her for the parish council. I quietly cut my chicken. No one asked about the research I was doing with a university professor. No one remembered I was the first in our family invited to a national student forum. To them, I was just Aria, the odd one, too ambitious, and not feminine enough. One day, I finally spoke up about the scholarship. I had everything ready: paperwork, itinerary, financial commitment. Every detail was planned. Savannah laughed first. You want to fly overseas? With your social skills? What happens if you have an allergy attack at the airport again? That made my dad lower his Bible. Aria, you need to know your limits. Your mother and I just want what's best. And that doesn't involve Europe. I fought back tears, but my chest burned like it had been pierced. They didn't see me. Or worse. They saw me and chose to ignore it. Savannah tilted her head, lips curled into fake sympathy. Sometimes God closes doors for a reason, you know. Looked at her, wondering how two girls could grow up under the same roof, and yet, I became something to hide, while she was celebrated as some divine gift. What hurt wasn't the comparison. It was knowing I had never been seen as someone with worth of my own. I didn't need their praise. I just needed to be seen. They wouldn't do that. They never intended to. And from that moment I knew, if I wanted to live as myself, I'd have to leave. No big scene, no tears, not even a goodbye. Just a different Aria. Quiet, but no longer compliant. I discovered my passport was missing on Friday afternoon, right after coming back from the bookstore where I'd bought a leather notebook to journal my upcoming trip to Europe. I had just set my bag down and opened my desk drawer, the same place I always kept my travel documents. The scholarship letter was still there. So was the plane ticket. But the passport had vanished. I tore through my desk, checked every drawer, dug through old files I hadn't touched since spring. Nothing. A whiff of expensive vanilla perfume hit my nose. Savannah was leaning against the doorway, holding a pastel pink smoothie. Planning to go save the world again? She smirked, eyes scanning my mess like it was entertainment. I didn't answer. I walked past her, straight downstairs. Mom, I called out, voice as steady as I could manage. Have you seen my passport? I kept it in a yellow envelope in my desk. My flight's on Monday. Are you sure you didn't misplace it somewhere? My mom called back from the kitchen, not bothering to look up. You get scatterbrained when you're stressed. From upstairs, Savannah clicked her tongue. Maybe it's in the fridge. Last time you lost your wallet, it was with the carrots, remember? I turned to face her. Savannah! Did you go into my room? Relax, Aria, who would want your passport? I'm not the one flying off anywhere. Everything I need is right here. And right then I remembered. The time my final presentation file mysteriously corrupted after Savannah had borrowed my laptop without asking. Or, junior year, when my science project got spilled with coffee the night before it was due. Savannah was around then too. Always accidental. Didn't know. Just coincidence. I went back upstairs and closed my door. My hands had stopped shaking. My heart still pounded, but not out of panic. Something else. Certainty. I sat down and opened the third drawer, where I kept my coded journal, and an old phone I only used for things I didn't want my family to know. I texted Liam. Plan B. Confirm backup passport. May have to activate emergency route. Less than 2 minutes later, he replied. Copy's ready. Meet Sunday morning, as scheduled. I put the phone away, walked to the window. Savannah's room faced mine across the backyard. Her blinds were cracked, just enough for me to see her FaceTiming. I couldn't hear, but the look she shot toward my window, smug and taunting, said enough. That evening, while the family gathered to watch Mom's favorite show, I excused myself early, saying I felt tired. Mom rubbed my shoulder. Savannah smiled like a saint. In my room, I set the alarm for 4:45 a.m. No one was up at that hour except Dad, and he'd canceled his usual routine for a doctor's appointment the next day. I quietly pulled my suitcase from the closet and folded clothes neatly inside. The original passport might be gone, but the backup? I'd applied for it back in March, the moment I received the scholarship offer, and sensed trouble might come. Liam didn't know everything about my family, but he knew enough to understand what I meant when I said, I need out without being seen. The next morning at breakfast, Mom's voice was gentle, almost pitying. Maybe that scholarship isn't the path God meant for you. The harder you push, the clearer He closes that door, Ari. I nodded and gave a small smile. Maybe you're right. Savannah chimed in. You look like you're finally getting it. I'm proud of you, really. I met her gaze head on. You've always looked out for me, haven't you? That night, I fake cried into my pillow as Mom brought in a cup of chamomile tea. I left it untouched on my desk. The house was silent at 4:43 a.m. I was already dressed. I rolled my suitcase quietly down the hall, stepping over the stair that always creaked. But there was one sound I hadn't planned for, the bathroom door opening. Where do you think you're going? Savannah's voice cut through the dark, colder than I'd ever heard. I turned. Calm. Unhurried. To where I actually belong. I opened the front door and walked out, leaving behind a family that still believed they could control everything. I didn't leave for good that day. I just went away for a few hours, met Liam at the Greyhound station on the edge of town, confirmed the backup passport, reviewed my flight schedule, and sent scanned copies of my scholarship documents to the program office as a precaution. Then I came home in the afternoon, like nothing had happened. Savannah was sitting on the sofa, a foamy latte in hand, casually chatting with my mother about decorating the new church activity room. She glanced up when I walked through the door, eyes filled with surprise and suspicion. Back earlier than expected? She said, voice soft as cotton but sharp as a blade. Yeah, I replied, setting my bag down without taking my eyes off her. Still haven't found the passport. That sentence was the match that lit the firestorm I was fully prepared to face. That evening after dinner, I placed my phone on the table. On the screen were photos of my new passport, the payment receipt, and a PDF labeled, Application Backup Timeline, Confidential. I'm done keeping secrets, I said, looking directly at my parents. I got a backup passport in April. Because I knew something like this could happen, and it did. The air thickened, my mom blinked rapidly, my dad furrowed his brow. Savannah pressed her lips together, her eyes shifting like she was calculating her next move. What are you talking about, Arya? My mom asked, voice low. You think someone took your passport? I turned to Savannah. Anything you want to say? She let out a soft laugh, the kind only someone fluent in lying could pull off. You're blaming me? That's ridiculous. You lose stuff all the time. Why does everything have to be some conspiracy? It's not a conspiracy when all the signs point to one person, I replied. My dad set his chopsticks down. Just a light clink, but enough to jolt the room. That's enough. Arya, you're stirring up drama over something no one can prove. Your mother and I have been very patient, but this has gone too far. My mom jumped in, wearing that weary look she saved for when I was too much. You always try to be above everyone. But not everyone's meant to fly as high as you think you should. Sometimes the good life is right here. In Des Moines. Savannah placed a hand on her chest, as if deeply wounded. You always think I'm holding you back, when I'm just trying to help you face reality. I stood up. Reality is that you've sabotaged every opportunity I've ever had. And Mom and Dad always believed you. Because you know how to play the role of the perfect daughter better than I ever did. My mom stood up too. Arya, I think you're lost. You need to pray, ask God for clarity. I let out a dry laugh. I've been praying for 19 years. And I finally realized something. God isn't the one closing doors on me. The people sitting in front of me are. Silence. My dad's eyes darkened, but he said nothing. Just shook his head, like I had confessed to some unforgivable sin. I left the dining room without looking back. In my hand was the suitcase I'd packed days earlier, hidden under my bed. The zipper only needed a light tug to burst open, with everything I needed. I wasn't playing by their rules anymore, no pleading, no explaining. All I had to do now was keep my passport dry and my interview outfit wrinkle-free. From behind me, Savannah called out. You'll regret this, Arya. You always make things harder than they have to be. I didn't turn around. I just said, speaking the truth isn't complicated, pretending lies are, love is. I walked upstairs and closed the door behind me. No footsteps followed. No knocks came. Just a strange, heavy quiet. Like I had officially stepped out of the role of the troublesome eldest daughter they had cast me in since the day I learned to read. The clock read 9:17 p.m. In about 8 hours, I'd be gone. Not out for a walk to clear my head or taking space to cool off, like they probably assumed, but for real. No looking back. I opened my closet and pulled out an old shoebox from the far back corner. At the bottom, under layers of old newspaper, was a clear plastic sleeve holding my backup passport, a printed plane ticket, photocopies of my scholarship papers, and an international SIM card, still unactivated. Everything had been ready since early April, when I realized family support only applied to Savannah, and I was on my own. I sent an encrypted message to Liam via Proton Mail. Alpha 2 confirmed. Departing 5:10 a.m. checkpoint, behind Walgreens lot. A minute later, he replied. Told you. Don't do anything reckless. You sure? I typed 3 words. Never been surer. The Navy backpack had been packed and stashed under my bed for days. I double-checked everything. Charger, earbuds, document pouch, RFID blood-reading wallet, and a handwritten checklist of what to do if I got caught before leaving. I'd even taped a note inside the flap. No compromise. My bedroom had a sliding window that opened to the back porch roof. If anything went wrong, I wasn't using the front door. I'd practiced climbing down once in June. Scraped my knee, but it was fast enough to avoid Savannah's gaze when she came home early. No goodbyes, no letter. I didn't believe in movie endings, where the runaway leaves a note apologizing for hurting people. I hadn't hurt anyone. They had. Savannah posted on Facebook at 10:12 p.m. a photo of us from 9th grade with the caption, "Praying for peace in the chaos. Family above all." Absurd. She could spin anything into her own little tragedy. That performative brand of virtue signaling the church just loved to reward. I turned on white noise from my phone to drown out the storm in my head. I wasn't scared, just alert. Every detail of the plan had been rehearsed, backed up, timed down to the minute. 2:30 a.m. I used my body clock to nap for just 2 hours. Enough to reset, not enough to drag. 4:37 a.m. I woke before the alarm. Already dressed in jeans, a black tee and a thin hoodie, I zipped the backpack slowly, slung it over one shoulder, and tucked my phone into the inner pocket. Barefoot, I crept across the hardwood floor, stepping around the fourth stair from the bottom, which always creaked. Mom was asleep in the front bedroom. Savannah wouldn't be up until 7 o'clock, Ayman post her daily coffee story. In the kitchen, the fridge light blinked like a silent ally. I left a folded note on the counter. Don't look for me, Mom's daughter is still here, your other one isn't. Just as I turned, the back door flung open. Savannah stood there in a bathrobe, phone in hand, bare-faced. Something so rare it felt surreal. You think you can leave without anyone noticing? She asked, her voice stripped of sweetness. I tightened my grip on the backpack strap. Doesn't matter who notices. What matters is who tries to stop me. You're going to destroy this family. This family never existed for me. She raised her phone like she was about to record. I stepped closer. Close enough to see every twitch in her expression. If you want to make this another social media circus, go ahead. But remember, that last tearful prayer video? People are starting to catch on. She said nothing. I opened the door and stepped into the pre-dawn cold. The wind hit my face like one final pat on the back from the life I was leaving behind. Liam was waiting behind the Walgreens lot, just like we'd planned. I got in the car, and he didn't ask a word. We just looked at each other. One look that said everything. From this moment on, I was no longer someone they could reshape, blame, or guilt trip into staying. I had brought everything I needed, the only thing I left behind was silence. Flight 482 from Chicago to Rome departed at 7:25 a.m. local time. I sat by the window. Didn't sleep a minute during the 10-hour flight. Didn't open a book. I just stared out at the sky, watching the clouds drift past like I was shedding layers of old wounds, outdated judgments, and my mother's head shakes every time I spoke of my dreams. When the plane landed at Fiumicino Airport, I didn't feel as lost as I expected. Rome greeted me in early sunlight. Ancient, free, and achingly real. A kind of real I hadn't seen in 20 years under the Monroe roof. Outside the arrivals hall, a woman in a black dress and red scarf waved at me. "Aria Monroe?" she asked, her voice warm, perfectly American. "I'm Eliza Beckett, your academic advisor for the program." I nodded. "Yes. I'm Aria. Welcome to Italy, and welcome to your new life." Eliza took me to the student residence, a renovated monastery that now housed students in the Global Policy program. My room was small, with a window overlooking an olive garden, thick stone walls, an old wooden door, and an oak desk with a vintage lamp. I set my backpack down, opened the window, and for the first time in a long while, I took a deep breath without feeling the weight of someone else's expectations on my chest. That afternoon, I was invited to an informal meet and greet with scholars and international speakers. It was supposed to be casual, but as I stepped into the marble-tiled hall, I was overwhelmed. UN officials, NGO leaders, diplomats from various embassies, everyone was there. Eliza smiled at me. "You'll be fine. You were chosen for a reason." Before I could sit, the program coordinator approached me. "We were very impressed with your essay. Would you be willing to share your perspective in this afternoon's roundtable?" I looked him straight in the eye. "Absolutely." 3 hours later, I stood at a small podium, speaking on the influence of digital media on public policy and youth political voice. Every sentence I spoke felt like peeling off years of shame placed on me by people who never believed I belonged. I ended with a line: "Sometimes, freedom isn't something given, It's something you claim for yourself, even when no one believes you should. Afterward, a French journalist shook my hand. You have a rare energy, Arya. I believe we'll be hearing your name again and again. That night, I got an email from the organizing committee. Ms. Aria Monroe has been selected to represent the North America delegation in next week's plenary session. I had never been chosen to represent anything back home. Not in school, not at church, not in my parents' eyes. At 11:52 p.m., I turned on my phone. My newly activated international SIM lit up with dozens of unread messages. From Mom. From Savannah. From an unknown number that had to be Dad. Aria, where are you? What's the point of running away? Think it through, it's not too late. I didn't respond. I posted one photo to Instagram instead. My name badge at the summit, under the bold print, Global Youth Policy Delegate. Caption: Not lost, just finally found. An hour later, the first comment came in. Savannah just deleted all her recent posts. What's going on? I smiled. Not because I felt vindicated, but because I felt light. For the first time in my life, I wasn't my sister's shadow. I was simply me, and I was just getting started. 3 days after my first speech in Rome, I received an email from Youth Horizons magazine. The subject line read, "Exclusive interview, is Aria Monroe the voice of a new generation?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to be heard, to be seen. But another part wasn't sure I was ready to lay the truth bare. Then I reminded myself, I didn't leave my family just to stay silent forever. The interview took place in a small cafe in Trastevere. The journalist, Clara, was Dutch, around 30, with eyes sharp enough to catch whatever someone tried to hide. "We've heard about your scholarship," she said softly. "But what people really want to know is the journey that brought you here. Is it true your family tried to stop you?" I looked straight into the recorder. It wasn't just about stopping me. They spent 20 years trying to suffocate every attempt I made to become my own person. I'm not saying this to blame anyone, but so others going through the same thing know they're not alone. 3 days later, the interview went live, both in print and online. The headline blazed across the front. From her sister's shadow to a global delegate, Aria Monroe breaks the silence. It exploded instantly. Within 12 hours, the hashtag Justice for Aria trended in the top 3 on Twitter. People shared quotes from the piece. I didn't run away from home. I walked away from people who never treated me like I was part of it. Family isn't always the safest place. Sometimes, it's where you first learn to doubt your own worth. An anonymous account posted an old clip from our 11th grade science fair. Savannah secretly holding a lighter near my project table. The video was grainy, but the implication was loud and clear. Another user resurfaced a post my mother made in a private church group the previous year, stating plainly, "Aria still hasn't found the right path like her sister has." Des Moines blew up. A former classmate messaged me. The church was holding an emergency meeting on the Monroe family's negative influence on the youth. A former church board member even wrote an open letter calling out, "the curtain of moral hypocrisy that's gone unchecked for too long." Savannah's Instagram, once boasting over 80,000 followers, dropped to 41,000 in just 3 days. Every new post was bombarded with comments. "Remember the passport? Try apologizing instead of praying for damage control. Your golden girl shine's looking a little dim, huh?" Savannah fired back with a tearful livestream, claiming I was fabricating lies for fame. But the internet wasn't buying it anymore. People started piecing together receipts, digging through years of curated perfection and uncovering cracks. I said nothing. No comments. No defense. I kept working, speaking, researching. One evening, Eliza walked into my room with an international newspaper. The front page showed a photo of me speaking at the Global Youth Policy Conference. The bold headline read, Aria Munro, the story of someone who refused to stay hidden. Eliza, you've been shortlisted for the Rising Leader Award next month, she told me. And the U.S. delegation has confirmed they want you to speak at the UN headquarters in Geneva. I held the paper in my hands. Something in me cracked. Not from pain, but from release. After years of pushing, I wasn't being ignored anymore. That night, I powered on my American phone for the first time in weeks. Over 200 unread messages. One of them was from my father. Your mom's really upset. Do you want the whole world to think we're monsters? I didn't reply. I took a screenshot and sent it to Eliza. With one message. How's the Geneva speech prep coming along? I stepped out of the main hall of the United Nations in Geneva, the sound of applause still echoing behind me, like a slow, fading wave. The stage lights were off, but my phone was glowing bright. Social media was blowing up with quotes from my speech. We don't need to shrink so others feel comfortable. Family shouldn't hold you back out of fear, but set you free with trust. I was invited to a cocktail reception with delegates from 3 continents. But all I could think about was how to silence the flood of notifications buzzing through my phone. Savannah Munro calling. I declined. A message from Dad. We need a talk. We're family, Aria. 1 minute later, Mom. Haven't you done enough? We said sorry. What more do you want? I didn't reply. I left the phone in my pocket and stepped out onto the balcony, lit by the soft white glow of Geneva at night. Eliza was already there, champagne in hand, gazing out over Lake Leman. Is it them again? She asked, without turning her head. I nodded. Now they're spinning it like it was all a misunderstanding, that I overreacted, that now that I've succeeded I should let it go? Eliza turned to face me. So, what are you going to do? I raised my glass. Just lemon water. I needed a clear mind for the life I was building. I'm going to keep going. I'm not stopping to soothe people who spent years twisting me into what they wanted. They call it reconciliation. I call it sugar-coated control. She smiled, nodding in quiet agreement. I had come further than they ever believed I could. The next morning, I woke up in my lakeside hotel room. Sunlight pouring through the curtains like a reminder. There's no going back now. My inbox had new mail. I'd been chosen as the face of Youth Beyond Borders. A campaign launched by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. They wanted me to speak in the Netherlands, Sweden, and South Africa over the next 3 months. Another photo was going viral, me hugging a young woman after the summit. She'd cried while sharing how her family had stopped her from going to college, because girls don't need degrees. The comments under the photo kept coming. Aria gave me the courage to apply for a scholarship. I filed for emancipation after hearing her speak. She's the voice of the forgotten child. Meanwhile, in Des Moines, Iowa, my family had completely changed their tone. Savannah posted a long message on Facebook. I was wrong. I let ego and jealousy guide me. Aria deserves recognition, not to be erased. My mother posted in the church group. We love both our daughters equally. Aria has always been our quiet pride. Quiet pride? I almost laughed. They used to treat every one of my achievements as a threat. Now they were retrofitting me into their narrative, to save face. A week later, I received an invitation. Savannah was slated to join a panel on Healing Sisterhood After Conflict, hosted by a faith-based media group. They wanted me to join. I declined, no hesitation, no spin. That evening, I recorded a podcast episode titled, Not Everyone Who Apologizes Deserves a Second Chance. My voice was calm, not bitter, but firm. Forgiveness is my right. But returning is my choice. I don't need to carry the ones who pushed me down just to prove I'm not angry. I just need to keep walking. The episode hit 500,000 streams in 48 hours. Liam texted me. You're changing the world. One steady decision at a time. I replied. I'm just not letting anyone rewrite a chapter I already closed. I sat alone on the balcony, laptop glowing with my travel schedule to Johannesburg. A notification chimed on my phone. An invitation to speak at TED Global. Topic: Reclaiming self-worth after leaving what you thought was family. I didn't feel bitter anymore. I didn't need them to understand. I just felt free. 3 months after my speech in Geneva, I stood in a packed auditorium in Johannesburg, South Africa, facing hundreds of young faces listening with fierce attention. A brown-skinned girl in the front row, her braided hair brushing her shoulders, raised her hand with a trembling voice. Have you ever felt wrong for leaving your family? Even if they treated you unfairly, there's still blood, right? I smiled, taking my time to answer. I'd been asked that same question across 3 continents. And each time, I returned to the memory of a 19-year-old girl, standing at her front door at dawn, backup passport hidden in her coat. Heart clenched tight like a fist. I don't regret leaving, I said, steady and sure. I regret believing for so long that blood gives someone the right to crush the path you're meant to walk. Silence. Then one person clapped. Then another stood. Soon, the whole room was erupting. My schedule left no room for rest. Nairobi, then Stockholm, then Seoul. Everywhere I went, I met young people who had been dismissed, conditionally loved, cast in supporting roles in their own lives. They carried wounds. But they also carried power, just waiting to be sparked. And each time I shared my story, a little more light broke through for them. In Nairobi, a 17-year-old boy slipped a folded note into my hand after the summit. Today was the first time I believed I could be more than what my family says I am. In Sweden, a girl of Iranian descent said backstage, I was going to drop out because I was called ungrateful. But now I'm going to study, so I no longer feel invisible. Everywhere I went, people didn't just hear my story. They heard theirs, finally told in words they hadn't dared to use. In early October, I returned to Rome to film a campaign for Youth Beyond Borders. The set was a bare room, symbolizing the memories we leave behind. After we wrapped, the director asked if I wanted to add any personal element. I nodded. I requested a photo frame placed face down on the desk. No one could see the picture, but I knew what it was. A Christmas photo from when I was 15. The year I won a statewide speech contest, while the whole family only talked about Savannah's new haircut. At the end of the video, I stood, turned my back to the table, and walked toward the sunlight. No dialogue, no explanation, just the choice to leave. And the light ahead. That video hit 8 million views in its first week. Thousands of messages poured in. Some were thank yous. Some were apologies. From parents beginning to realize they might have hurt their children with blind expectations. I was invited to speak at TED Global, this time on the topic, Redefining Family, When Love Doesn't Come with a Bloodline. I spent 2 weeks writing the talk, scrapping and rewriting nearly a dozen drafts. But when I finally stepped onto that stage, I said only what my heart had always known. Forgiveness doesn't mean giving them the chance to hurt you again. Sometimes, loving yourself begins with saying no. To the ones who raised you. No one in the crowd cried immediately. They just sat there, long, silent, still, like something old inside them had just been named. A week later, I received an email from a stranger. Aria. I'm the mother of a girl who once ran away because we wouldn't let her study art. She heard you speak at TED. Now she's at the Florence Design Academy. I used to hate you. Now I'm grateful. I read it, then opened my phone and posted a photo from my hotel balcony in Lisbon, where I was preparing for my next talk. Caption: No one is born to live in a cage, even if that cage is called love. The first comment came just minutes later. It was from Savannah. Learning to look straight into the light without flinching. Thank you for not coming back. If you had, I never would have learned that. I stared at that message for a long time. But I didn't reply. I wasn't angry. I wasn't emotional. I was just at peace. Because I finally understood. My goal was never to make them bow their heads. It was to lift mine without needing anyone's permission. And I had done it. Arya's story reminds us that sometimes, family isn't the safest place to grow. Some are silenced and dismissed simply for not fitting the mold others expect, yet it's often those overlooked who shine the brightest. When they choose themselves and step into the light. Forgiveness doesn't mean going back. And success isn't about proving them wrong, it's proof you were never wrong for believing in your worth. What do you think about Arya's journey and her brave choices? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family, choice, and finding your true value.